r/ProRevenge my stepsister destroyed my wedding so I exposed her affair. The champagne flute shattered against the venue floor as I watched my stepsister Emma smirk from across the reception hall, chocolate wedding cake dripping down my white dress like some twisted art project. The gasps from my guests echoed in my ears, but all I could focus on was that satisfied gleam in her eyes, the same look she'd given me when we were kids and she'd successfully gotten me in trouble. "Oops," she said, loud enough for the front tables to hear. "I'm so sorry, Sarah. These heels are just so hard to walk in. I guess I'm not as graceful as the bride." 24 hours earlier, I'd been floating on cloud 9. After 2 years of planning, my wedding to Mark was supposed to be perfect. Small but elegant, surrounded by family and our closest friends at the historic Rosewood Manor. I'd even asked Emma to be in my bridal party because, despite our complicated history, she was still family. Mom had remarried Emma's dad when we were both 16, and I'd spent 12 years trying to bridge the gap between us. What an idiot I was. The cake incident was just the grand finale of what had been the most humiliating day of my life. It started that morning when half my guests received anonymous texts claiming the wedding was postponed due to the bride's cold feet. By the time we figured out what happened and contacted everyone, we'd lost 40 people, including Mark's grandmother who lived 3 hours away and couldn't make the drive twice. Then the catering company showed up with completely wrong food. Apparently someone had called pretending to be me and changed our carefully planned menu to include shellfish. Half my family is allergic to shellfish. When I called to complain, they played back the recording of my voice making the changes 3 days prior. The voice was close, but it wasn't me. The flowers arrived dead. The string quartet never showed because they'd received a cancellation call. My wedding photographer's equipment mysteriously malfunctioned. Later, I discover someone had loosened the battery compartments on all his cameras the night before during the rehearsal. But the worst part wasn't the logistical nightmare. It was watching Emma play the perfect concerned stepsister all day, rushing around to help fix problems she'd created, offering tissues when I cried, and making sympathetic comments to guests about how these things happen and how Sarah is handling it so well. The final straw came during my maid of honor speech. Emma stood up halfway through, tears streaming down her face, and announced that she couldn't let me make such a huge mistake. In front of everyone, my new in-laws, my boss, childhood friends who'd flown in from across the country, she launched into a speech about how Mark had tried to kiss her the night before and how she'd been wrestling with her conscience all day. Mark's face went white. My mother gasped. His parents looked mortified. The room erupted in confused whispers while Emma sobbed about how she couldn't let family marry someone so dishonest and how Sarah deserved to know the truth. That's when I knew. Standing there in my ruined dress, watching my husband of 3 hours try to defend himself against lies, seeing the doubt creep into people's faces, I finally understood what 12 years of Emma's resentment looked like when it exploded. She'd systematically destroyed the most important day of my life, and she'd done it with a smile. But as I stared at her fake tears and theatrical performance, one thought crystallized in my mind with perfect clarity. Emma had just made the biggest mistake of her life. Because I knew her secret. The reception ended in chaos. Mark and I didn't even get to cut our cake properly, not that it mattered since Emma had already decorated my dress with it. Guests filed out awkwardly, some offering confused congratulations, others shooting suspicious glances at my new husband. His parents left without saying goodbye. I spent our wedding night in my childhood bedroom at Mom's house, still in my stained dress, while Mark stayed at his apartment. We needed space to process what had happened, and honestly, I needed time to plan. Emma's secret had fallen into my lap 3 weeks earlier, purely by accident. I'd gone to Starbucks near my office for my usual afternoon coffee when I spotted her in the corner booth, locked in what was definitely not a casual conversation with a man who wasn't her fiancé Derek. The body language was unmistakable, intimate touches, fingers intertwined, the way they leaned into each other like they were sharing secrets. I almost called out to her before I recognized who the man was, Jake Morrison, my friend Melissa's husband of 5 years. I ducked behind a display of coffee beans and watched them for 20 minutes, my stomach churning as Jake traced patterns on Emma's palm and she giggled like a teenager. When they left together, Emma's hand tucked into his back pocket, I knew I was witnessing something that would destroy multiple lives. The smart thing would have been to confront her then. The decent thing would have been to tell Melissa immediately. Instead, I'd frozen, paralyzed by the implications and desperately hoping I'd misunderstood what I'd seen. But I hadn't misunderstood anything, and now Emma had crossed a line that made my previous restraint look like stupidity. The Monday after my wedding, I called in sick to work and drove to that same Starbucks. If Emma was having an affair, she probably had a routine. I felt ridiculous sitting there in sunglasses and a baseball cap like some discount private investigator, but desperation makes you do crazy things. Sure enough, she showed up at 2:30 p.m., scanning the room before sliding into the same corner booth. Jake arrived 10 minutes later, and this time I was ready. My phone captured everything, the kiss when he sat down, their hands all over each other, the way she straddled his lap when she thought they were hidden by the booth's high back. I followed them to the Marriott downtown, my hands shaking on the steering wheel as I photographed them checking in together. The desk clerk handed them one key card. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. Over the next week, I became obsessed. Every lunch break, every free evening, I found myself tracking their movements. The paper trail was extensive once you knew where to look. Emma's credit card statements showed regular charges at restaurants across town during hours she should have been at work. Her social media posts claiming girls' nights out corresponded perfectly with Jake's business trip claims on his Facebook. I created a fake Instagram account and started documenting everything. Photos of them at intimate dinners, walking hand in hand through parks, making out in Jake's car outside Emma's office building. They met 3 times a week, always at different locations, always when Derek thought Emma was working late at the marketing firm. The more evidence I gathered, the clearer their timeline became. This wasn't some recent fling, they'd been carrying on for months, maybe longer. Emma had looked me in the eye during family dinners and engagement parties, playing the happy future bride while she systematically betrayed everyone who loved her. But as satisfying as it was to catch her in lies, I needed more than photos for what I was planning. I needed something that would expose not just the affair, but the calculated cruelty underneath Emma's perfect facade. That's when I remembered Derek's birthday party next weekend, where Emma would be surrounded by everyone she'd spent months lying to, including Melissa. Derek's birthday party was being held at his parents' country club, the kind of place where Emma loved to show off her engagement ring and play the role of devoted fiancé's daughter-in-law-to-be. I almost didn't go. The thought of watching her perform innocence while I knew the truth made my stomach turn. But this was my chance to get the final piece of evidence I needed. The party was in full swing when I arrived, fashionably late and armed with a plan. Emma looked stunning in a navy cocktail dress, her arm looped through Derek's as she charmed his relatives with stories about their upcoming wedding. The irony wasn't lost on me. She was discussing flower arrangements with Derek's aunt while her phone buzzed constantly with what I knew were Jake's texts. I'd been monitoring her patterns long enough to know that Jake was getting impatient. He'd been pushing for more frequent meetups, sending increasingly demanding messages about wanting real time together instead of stolen afternoons. The pressure was starting to show in Emma's behavior. I'd noticed her snapping at Derek during family dinners, claiming stress from wedding planning. Sarah. Derek's voice boomed across the room as he spotted me. I'm so glad you came. How are you holding up after everything? The genuine concern in his voice made my chest tighten. Derek was a good guy, patient, kind, completely devoted to Emma. He'd been nothing but supportive after my wedding disaster, even offering to help pay for professional cleaning of my dress. The fact that his own fiancée had orchestrated the whole thing would destroy him. But that was Emma's fault, not mine. I'm doing better, I said, forcing a smile. Focusing on moving forward, you know? Emma appeared at Derek's shoulder, her expression carefully neutral. Sarah, what a surprise. I wasn't sure you'd be up for parties yet. The fake sympathy in her voice made my teeth clench, but I kept my smile in place. I wouldn't miss Derek's birthday. Besides, families should stick together through difficult times, don't you think? Something flickered in her eyes, uncertainty, maybe even fear. Good. She should be worried. Have you talked to Melissa lately? I asked casually. I've been meaning to call her, but work's been crazy. Emma's grip on her wine glass tightened almost imperceptibly. Not really. You know how busy everyone gets. That was interesting. Melissa had been Emma's alibi for at least 3 of her recent girls' nights I knew she'd actually spent with Jake. If they weren't coordinating stories anymore, Emma was getting sloppy. The evening progressed with painful normalcy. Derek gave a heartfelt speech about finding his soulmate, while Emma stood beside him looking appropriately adoring. His parents toasted their engagement, talking about wedding plans and future grandchildren. The whole time, Emma's phone kept lighting up with notifications she thought no one else could see. Around 10 p.m., I watched her excuse herself to the bathroom, phone clutched in her hand. This was my chance. I followed at a distance and positioned myself in the hallway where I could hear her hushed conversation through the bathroom door. Jake, you can't keep texting me here, she whispered urgently. Derek's family is everywhere. No, I can't leave early, it's his birthday. Tomorrow, I promise. The usual place. My recording app captured every word. When she emerged, I was already walking back toward the party, but I caught her reflection in the hallway mirror. The mask had slipped, she looked exhausted, stressed, nothing like the glowing bride-to-be from earlier. As the party wound down, I made my polite goodbyes, hugging Derek extra tight and promising to get together soon. Emma's eyes followed me suspiciously, but she couldn't exactly interrogate me in front of everyone. Driving home, I reviewed my recording and smiled for the first time in weeks. Emma had just handed me the perfect ammunition, and she didn't even know it. Tomorrow, the real revenge would begin. The next morning, I sat in my car outside Jake and Melissa's house, watching their picture-perfect suburban routine unfold through the kitchen window. Jake kissed Melissa goodbye at exactly 7:45 a.m., the same kiss he'd probably given her every morning for 5 years while planning his afternoon betrayal. Melissa waved from the doorway in her scrubs. She was pulling double shifts at the hospital to save for their anniversary trip to Italy. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Melissa had been nothing but kind to me, even sending flowers and a heartfelt note after my wedding disaster. She deserved so much better than this. Jake's car pulled out of the driveway, and I followed at a careful distance. Instead of heading toward his accounting firm downtown, he made a detour to the mall. I watched through my telephoto lens as he browsed jewelry stores for 30 minutes before settling on an expensive necklace from Tiffany's. The sales receipt, captured through the store window, showed a purchase amount that made my stomach turn. He was buying gifts for his mistress with money that should have been going toward his marriage. This was escalating faster than I'd expected. The necklace suggested Jake was planning something big, maybe pushing Emma to leave Derek entirely. If that happened before I could execute my plan, the revenge would lose its impact. I needed to accelerate my timeline. But first, I had to deal with an unexpected complication. My phone buzzed with a text from my mom. Emma wants to take you to lunch today. She's worried about you after everything that happened. Please go, honey. Family needs to support each other. My blood ran cold. Emma never voluntarily spent time with me, especially not one-on-one. This had to be connected to my appearance at Derek's party. She was suspicious, maybe even scared. Which meant she was getting dangerous. 2 hours later, I sat across from Emma at an upscale bistro downtown, watching her pick at her salad while she performed concern. She'd chosen a location, somewhere public but intimate, where she could control the conversation. I've been thinking about you constantly since the wedding, she said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. What happened was just so awful. All those things going wrong, and then that horrible misunderstanding with Mark. Misunderstanding? The word slipped out sharper than I intended. Emma's eyes flickered. Well, I mean, I'm sure there's an explanation for what I saw. Maybe I misread the situation. Weddings are so stressful, emotions run high. She was testing me, trying to gauge whether I believed her lies or suspected the truth. I forced my expression to stay neutral, playing the role of grieving bride instead of avenging sister. I appreciate you being honest with me, I said carefully. Even though it hurt, I needed to know. Relief flooded her face, and I realized how terrified she'd been that I might not buy her story. I hated having to say something, but I couldn't live with myself if I stayed quiet. Your family, Sarah. I had to protect you. The audacity was breathtaking. She'd systematically destroyed my wedding day and was now painting herself as my protector. But her relief was also revealing. She thought she'd gotten away with it completely. Have you been okay though? I asked, leaning forward with manufactured concern. You seemed stressed at Derek's party. Wedding planning getting to you? Emma's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Just the usual stuff. Vendors, timelines, you know how it is. And work's been keeping you busy too. All those late nights. Now she was definitely on guard. Not that busy. Why? Oh, Mom mentioned you've been working late a lot. She worries about you burning out before the wedding. The lie rolled off my tongue smoothly, and I watched Emma's mental calculations as she tried to remember what stories she told to whom. The web of deception was getting too complex for her to track. I should probably head back, she said abruptly, signaling for the check. Thanks for lunch, Sarah. I'm glad we could talk. As she hurried away, I smiled. Emma was rattled, which meant my timeline had just become critical. Tomorrow, I'd start destroying her life. The first domino fell on Wednesday morning at 9:15 a.m. I'd spent the entire night crafting the perfect message to Derek, writing and rewriting until every word carried maximum impact. The photos were organized chronologically, showing the progression of Emma and Jake's affair from tentative coffee dates to full-blown hotel rendezvous. The recording from his birthday party was edited to remove background noise, making Emma's whispered promises to Jake crystal clear. But as my finger hovered over the send button, my phone rang. Sarah, honey, we need to talk. Mom's voice was strained, urgent in a way that made my stomach drop. What's wrong? It's about Mark. Emma came over this morning, very upset. She says he's been bothering her since the wedding. Following her, sending inappropriate messages. She's scared, Sarah. She wants to file a restraining order. The phone nearly slipped from my hand. Emma wasn't just covering her tracks, she was going nuclear, painting Mark as some kind of stalker to discredit anything he might say about her. It was brilliant and absolutely ruthless. Mom, that's not. I know this is hard to hear, but Emma showed me screenshots of text messages. They're concerning. Very inappropriate advances, threats about what he'll do if she tells people what really happened at the wedding. My mind raced. Emma must have created fake messages somehow, maybe using one of those text generator apps. She was building a narrative that would destroy Mark's reputation while simultaneously making herself look like the victim. If she filed that restraining order, it would be public record. Mark's career in finance would be over. Where is she now? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. At the police station with Derek. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I know you love him, but maybe Emma's outburst at the wedding was her trying to protect you from something darker. I ended the call and immediately dialed Mark, my hands shaking. Voicemail. I tried 3 more times before he finally picked up. Sarah, thank God. You need to know. Emma's filing a restraining order against you. She's claiming you've been stalking her. The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. What? That's insane. I haven't even seen her since the wedding. I've been staying at my brother's place, trying to figure out how to salvage our reputation after her lies. She has fake text messages, Mark. Screenshots showing you harassing her. That's impossible. I'll prove it, I'll show them my phone records, my actual messages. This is crazy. But even as he said it, I could hear the defeat creeping into his voice. We both knew how these situations played out. Emma's word against his, a crying woman versus an angry man. The optics were terrible. Mark, listen to me carefully. Don't go to the police station. Don't try to contact Emma or Derek. Get a lawyer, right now. And whatever you do, don't mention anything about her affair until we figure this out. After hanging up, I stared at the evidence folder on my laptop. Emma had just forced my hand, but she'd also revealed something crucial. She was desperate enough to frame an innocent person for stalking. That level of desperation meant she knew her world was about to collapse. She just didn't realize I was the one holding the sledgehammer. The restraining order changed everything. I couldn't just expose the affair anymore. I needed to completely destroy Emma's credibility before she could destroy Mark's life. Which meant I needed help from someone with more resources and fewer scruples than me. Someone like my cousin Rachel, who worked for the district attorney's office and had access to databases I could only dream of. Time for the nuclear option. Rachel's office was tucked away on the 3rd floor of the courthouse, a cramped space filled with case files and coffee-stained legal briefs. My cousin looked up from her computer as I knocked, her expression shifting from surprise to concern when she saw my face. Sarah? What are you doing here? Mom said you were taking some time off after. She trailed off awkwardly. I need your help, Ratch. And before you say anything, just hear me out. I'd driven straight from my conversation with Mom, my mind churning with possibilities. Rachel had always been the family rebel, the one who bent rules when justice demanded it. If anyone would understand what I was planning, it would be her. This is about Emma, isn't it? Rachel leaned back in her chair, studying my face. I heard about the restraining order. Mark's lawyer already called our office asking about the process. My heart sank. It's moving that fast? Stalking allegations get priority, especially when there's documented evidence of threatening behavior. Rachel's tone was carefully neutral, but I caught the skepticism in her eyes. Though between you and me, something feels off about the whole thing. The timeline doesn't make sense. This was my opening. That's because Emma's lying. About everything. The wedding, Mark, all of it. For the next 20 minutes, I laid out everything, the affair, the sabotage, the systematic destruction of my wedding day. I showed Rachel the photos, played the recordings, walked her through Emma's elaborate deception. My cousin's expression grew darker with each revelation. Jesus, Sarah. This is big. If even half of this is true, Emma's committed fraud, filing false police reports, defamation. Rachel scrolled through the images on my phone, her prosecutor instincts kicking in. But why didn't you come to me sooner? Because I wanted to handle it myself. But now she's going after Mark, and I can't let an innocent person pay for her crimes. Rachel was quiet for a long moment, weighing something in her mind. Finally, she turned to her computer. The text messages Emma submitted as evidence, I can request the metadata analysis. If they're faked, our tech guys will spot it immediately. How long will that take? Normally? 2 weeks. But I might be able to expedite it if I frame it as potential perjury in an ongoing investigation. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. There's something else, though. If Emma's willing to file false police reports, she's escalating dangerously. People who feel cornered do unpredictable things. As if summoned by her words, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Stop digging or you'll regret it. Some secrets are meant to stay buried. A friend. Rachel read the message over my shoulder and swore under her breath. Screenshot that. Now. We're documenting everything from here on out. You think it's from Emma? Or Jake? Either way, they know you're onto them. Rachel pulled up another screen on her computer. I'm going to run background checks on both of them, see if there are any other complaints, any patterns of behavior we should know about. The printer whirred to life, spitting out forms and legal documents. Rachel gathered them efficiently, her movements sharp with purpose. I need you to file a formal complaint about the wedding sabotage. Insurance fraud, destruction of property, intentional infliction of emotional distress. We'll throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. But what about Mark? The restraining order hearing is tomorrow morning. I'll make some calls, see if we can get it delayed pending the investigation into Emma's credibility. Rachel's smile was sharp as a blade. She wants to play games with the legal system? Let's show her what happens when you lie to prosecutors. As I filled out paperwork, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Derek. Can we talk? Something's not adding up about Emma's story. The first crack in Emma's perfect facade was starting to show. Derek agreed to meet me at a coffee shop across town, not the Starbucks where I'd first spotted Emma and Jake, but somewhere neutral where we wouldn't be seen by anyone who knew us. I arrived 20 minutes early, my nerves frayed from the threatening text and the weight of what I was about to reveal. He walked in looking haggard, his usually perfect hair disheveled and dark circles under his eyes. The man who'd been glowing with happiness just days ago at his birthday party now looked like he'd aged years. Thank you for coming, he said, sliding into the booth across from me. I didn't know who else to talk to about this. My chest tightened with guilt. Derek was a genuinely good person caught in the crossfire of Emma's destruction. What's going on? It's Emma's story about Mark. The timeline doesn't work. Derek pulled out his phone, scrolling through what looked like calendar entries. She says he started harassing her the day after your wedding, right? But look at this. He showed me Emma's shared calendar, the one they used to coordinate their busy schedules. She was supposed to be home Wednesday night when she claims Mark showed up at our apartment and tried to force his way in. But her calendar shows a work dinner that ran until 10 p.m. I remember because I ordered takeout and ate alone. My pulse quickened. Did you tell the police this? That's just it. When I brought it up to Emma, she got furious. Said I was questioning her integrity when she was already traumatized. Then she changed her story, said the incident happened Thursday instead. Derek's hands trembled slightly as he put his phone away. But Thursday she was with me at my parents' house for dinner. My whole family can confirm it. This was better than I'd hoped. Emma was unraveling, making mistakes under pressure. Derek, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Have you noticed anything else strange about Emma's behavior lately? His laugh was bitter. You mean besides my fiancé suddenly claiming my future brother-in-law is stalking her? Yeah, actually. She's been different for months. Secretive. Always working late, never wants to do things together anymore. Her phone is constantly buzzing with messages she won't let me see. Working late at the marketing firm? That's what she says, but... Derek hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. I drove by her office last month when she said she was pulling an all-nighter. The building was completely dark. No cars in the parking lot. When I asked her about it, she said they moved the project to a different location. My heart raced. This was the opening I needed, but I had to be careful. Push too hard and Derek might shut down, warn Emma that people were questioning her stories. Derek, what if I told you I had reason to believe Emma wasn't where she said she was during those late nights? His face went pale. What kind of reason? Before I could answer, my phone rang. Rachel's name flashed on the screen, and something in my expression must have alarmed Derek because he leaned forward intently. I had to take this, I said, stepping away from the table. Sarah, we have a problem. Rachel's voice was tight with urgency. I ran those background checks on Emma and Jake. Jake Morrison has a history, 2 previous affairs that ended messy. One woman filed harassment charges when he wouldn't leave her alone after she tried to break it off. My stomach dropped. What kind of harassment? Threatening texts, showing up at her workplace, intimidating her friends into not supporting her. Sound familiar? And Sarah, there's more. Emma's credit report shows some irregularities. Large cash advances, payments to companies that don't exist. I think she might be stealing from her employer. I glanced back at Derek, who was watching me with growing anxiety. How bad is this going to get? If Jake follows his pattern, he'll escalate when the affair is exposed. And if Emma's embezzling money, she's probably funding this double life with stolen cash. We're not just looking at relationship drama anymore, this is serious criminal behavior. As Rachel continued explaining the legal implications, I watched Derek check his own phone. His face went from confused to horrified as he read something on his screen. Rachel, I have to go. Derek just got some kind of message. I rushed back to the table where Derek sat staring at his phone like it might explode. What is it? He turned the screen toward me, his voice barely a whisper. Emma just texted. She's at the emergency room. Says someone attacked her in the parking garage at work. She's claiming it was Mark. The emergency room at St. Mary's Hospital buzzed with controlled chaos as Derek and I rushed through the sliding doors. My mind raced with possibilities, each one worse than the last. If Emma was seriously hurt, my revenge plot suddenly seemed petty and cruel. But if this was another elaborate lie to frame Mark... Derek approached the reception desk, his face pale with worry. Emma Chen, she was brought in about an hour ago. She's my fiancée. The nurse checked her computer. Roommate. She's stable, just some minor cuts and bruises. The police are with her now taking a statement. My stomach lurched. Police meant this was escalating beyond anything I'd planned. Through the partially open door of roommate, I could see Emma on the hospital bed, her left arm in a sling and what looked like scratches on her face. She was speaking to 2 officers, her voice weak but clear. He came out of nowhere, she was saying. I was walking to my car after staying late to finish a presentation, and suddenly Mark was there. He grabbed my arm, said I'd ruined his life and that I'd pay for it. Derek squeezed my hand. Sarah, maybe we should go in. No, I said quickly. Let her finish talking to the police first. One of the officers looked up as we approached. Are you family? Derek Morrison, her fiancé. And this is Sarah, Mark's wife. The officer's demeanor shifted instantly upon hearing my name. Ma'am, I need you to know that we've issued a warrant for your husband's arrest. Ms. Chan's injuries are consistent with her account of the assault. The room spun. A warrant. This had spiraled completely out of control. Officer, I think there might be some confusion. Sarah. Emma's voice drifted from the hospital bed, weak but somehow triumphant. Derek, I'm so glad you're here. I was so scared to call, but after what happened. Derek rushed to her side while I hung back, studying Emma's injuries with a critical eye. The scratches on her face looked fresh but superficial, the kind you might get from deliberately scraping yourself against a rough surface. Her injured arm moved freely despite the sling when she thought no one was looking. Can you walk me through exactly what happened? The second officer asked, pen poised over his notepad. I was leaving work around 8 p.m. I'd been there late working on the Henderson account. The parking garage was mostly empty, and I was texting Derek to let him know I was heading home when someone grabbed me from behind. Emma's voice caught perfectly, tears welling in her eyes. At first I didn't recognize him in the dark, but when he spun me around, it was definitely Mark. Did he say anything specific? He said I destroyed his marriage for nothing, that Sarah would never believe me over him anyway. Then he shoved me against the concrete pillar and said if I didn't drop the restraining order, he'd make sure I couldn't testify about anything. It was a masterful performance. Emma had anticipated every question, crafted a story that painted Mark as escalating from harassment to physical violence. She'd even created a believable motive, revenge for the restraining order. But she'd made one crucial mistake. Officer, I said, stepping closer to the bed. What time did you say this happened, Emma? Her eyes flickered toward me, and for just a moment, I saw calculation instead of fear. Around 8 o'clock. Why? I pulled out my phone, opening the tracking app that Mark had installed on both our devices after a car breakdown last year. Because Mark was at his brother's house in Springfield at 8 p.m. He's been staying there since the wedding, and Springfield is 2 hours away from Emma's office. The officer frowned. Can you prove that? GPS tracking, credit card receipts, and probably security cameras at his brother's apartment complex. I showed the screen to the officer, my heart pounding. Mark never left Springfield today. He couldn't have attacked Emma because he wasn't even in the same city. The silence in the room was deafening. Derek stared at Emma with growing horror as the implications sank in. The officers exchanged glances, their professional skepticism finally kicking in. Ms. Chen, the first officer said slowly, would you like to revise your statement? Emma's mask finally slipped completely, revealing the cold fury underneath. You have no idea what you've just done, Sarah. Emma's face contorted into something I'd never seen before, pure, undiluted rage stripped of all pretense. The helpless victim act evaporated instantly, replaced by a woman backed into a corner with nothing left to lose. Officers, she said, her voice suddenly steady and cold, I need to speak with my fiancé privately. I'm feeling overwhelmed and confused. The attack was traumatic, and maybe I'm misremembering some details. The older officer studied her carefully. Ma'am, filing a false police report is a serious felony. If you're changing your story. I'm not changing anything. I just need a moment to collect myself before we continue. Emma's hand found Derek's arm, her fingers digging in with desperate intensity. Derek, please. I need you to trust me right now. The officer stepped outside, promising to return in 15 minutes. The moment the door closed, Derek pulled away from Emma's grip, his face a mask of betrayal and confusion. Emma, what the hell is going on? Sarah just proved Mark couldn't have attacked you. So who did this? Or did you? He gestured helplessly at her injuries. Did you do this to yourself? Derek, you don't understand. Sarah's been planning this for weeks. She's obsessed with destroying me because she can't accept that Mark tried to seduce me at their wedding. Emma's voice took on a pleading quality, but her eyes remained calculating. She probably had someone hurt me and then fed you that GPS information. Don't you see? She's playing you. I laughed, the sound harsh in the sterile room. Really, Emma? That's your play? Blame me for a conspiracy to assault you? Prove you didn't. Emma sat up straighter, her supposed injuries forgotten. Prove you weren't so desperate for revenge that you hired someone to hurt me just so you could swoop in and play hero with fake alibis. For a moment, doubt flickered across Derek's face, and I realized how clever Emma was being. She couldn't maintain the Mark story, but she could redirect suspicion toward me. Paint herself as the victim of an elaborate frame job orchestrated by a jealous stepsister. Derek, I said quietly, ask her about Jake Morrison. The color drained from Emma's face so quickly I thought she might actually faint. Derek looked between us, sensing the shift in the room's energy. Who's Jake Morrison? He asked. Derek, don't listen to her. Jake Morrison is Melissa's husband, I continued, my voice steady despite my racing heart. The man Emma's been having an affair with for the past 6 months. The man she meets at hotels 3 times a week while you think she's working late. That's insane, Emma whispered, but her voice lacked conviction. Derek, she's lying. She's desperate to deflect from what she did to me. Derek's phone buzzed in his pocket. He glanced at it automatically, then froze. Emma, you just got a text. From someone named Jay. It says hospital? What happened? Call me when Dee isn't around. The room went dead silent. Emma's face cycled through several emotions, panic, calculation, then a kind of resigned fury that made my skin crawl. You went through my phone, she said flatly. Your phone was in your purse. This came through on my Apple Watch, the one you asked me to link to your messages so I could help with wedding vendor calls. Derek's voice was hollow with realization. Jake. How long, Emma? Instead of denying it, Emma did something that chilled me to the bone. She smiled. Not the fake, manipulative smile she'd worn for months, but something genuine and terrifying. Long enough to know what I'm willing to do to protect it, she said. And Sarah, you have no idea what you've just unleashed. The door opened as the officers returned, but Emma was already reaching for her phone with her supposedly injured arm. She was making a call. The phone call Emma was making sent ice through my veins, especially when I heard her say, "Jake, we have a problem." Sarah knows everything. Derek lunged for the phone, but Emma had already ended the call. The officer stepped back into the room just as Derek grabbed her wrist, the one that was supposedly too injured to move. "Ma'am, are you ready to continue your statement?" the older officer asked, oblivious to the drama that had just unfolded. "Actually," Derek said, his voice shaking with rage, "I think my fiancé has some explaining to do about Jake Morrison." Emma's eyes darted between the officers and the door like a trapped animal. "Derek, please, not here. Not like this." But Derek was done. "Officers, I think you need to know that Emma has been having an affair. The person she's been texting, Jake Morrison, he's married to someone else. And now I'm wondering if this whole attack story is connected to that somehow." "Sir, we're investigating an alleged assault." "An assault that didn't happen," I interrupted, pulling up more evidence on my phone. "Officers, I have photos of Emma with Jake Morrison taken over the past several weeks. Hotel receipts, restaurant charges, everything. She's been systematically lying to everyone." The younger officer looked frustrated. "Ma'am, we need to focus on." His radio crackled to life, cutting him off. "Unit 47, we have a situation at 1247 Oakwood Drive. Domestic disturbance, possible assault. Victim is a Melissa Morrison, suspects fled the scene." My blood turned to ice. Melissa Morrison. Jake's wife. The woman who'd sent me flowers after my wedding disaster, who worked double shifts to save for their anniversary trip to Italy. "That's Jake's address," I whispered, the pieces clicking together with horrible clarity. "Emma called him, told him I knew about the affair." "He must have," I couldn't finish the sentence. Emma's face had gone completely white. "No, Jake wouldn't, he's not violent. He would never hurt Melissa." "Like you would never lie to the police?" Derek's voice was bitter. "Or destroy Sarah's wedding? Or fake your own assault?" The officers were already heading for the door when Emma called out desperately, "Wait. I need to change my statement. Mark didn't attack me. I fell down the stairs at my office. I was upset about something and wasn't watching where I was going." The older officer turned back, his expression grim. "Ms. Chen, you're going to need to come down to the station. Filing false police reports, wasting emergency resources, these are serious charges." "But Melissa," Emma started. "Is being taken care of by other units," the officer said firmly. "Right now, you're our priority." As they prepared to escort Emma out, she grabbed Derek's arm one last time. "Derek, I'm sorry. I never meant for anyone to get hurt. Jake said he was going to leave Melissa, that we could be together. I wanted what Sarah had so badly that I lost myself." Derek pulled away from her touch. "You didn't lose yourself, Emma. This is who you really are." After they left, Derek and I sat in the hospital waiting room in stunned silence. My phone kept buzzing with updates from Rachel about Mark's warrant being withdrawn and formal charges being filed against Emma. But all I could think about was Melissa, lying in some other emergency room because of secrets that had spiraled completely out of control. "I should have seen it," Derek said finally. "All the signs were there. I just loved her too much to believe she was capable of this." "Derek, this isn't your fault." "Isn't it?" His laugh was hollow. "I was so busy planning our perfect future that I ignored everything happening right in front of me. Just like you ignored what she did to your wedding until it was too late to stop her." He was right, and the guilt hit me like a physical blow. My need for revenge had blinded me to the collateral damage. Now an innocent woman was hurt, possibly seriously, because I'd forced Emma into a corner without considering how dangerous she really was. My phone rang. Rachel's name appeared on the screen, and somehow I knew the news would be even worse than I'd feared. "Sarah, where are you right now?" Rachel's voice was sharp with urgency. "Still at the hospital with Derek." "What's happening with Melissa?" "She's alive, but it's bad. Jake didn't just assault her, he cleaned out their joint bank accounts and grabbed his passport. We think he's running." Rachel's words came in a rush. "But that's not why I'm calling. We just got the metadata back on Emma's fake text messages about Mark." I pressed the phone closer to my ear, Derek leaning in to listen. "And? They weren't created on Emma's phone. The IP address traces back to a computer at Morrison and Associates, Jake's accounting firm. Sarah, he's the one who helped her fabricate the evidence against Mark. This goes deeper than just an affair." My mind reeled. "How much deeper?" I pulled Jake's client list. Emma's marketing firm has been using Morrison and Associates for their books for the past year. And remember those irregularities I found in Emma's finances? I think Jake's been helping her embezzle from her company and hide the money trail. Derek's face had gone ashen. That's why she needed the affair to stay secret. It wasn't just about our relationship, they were stealing money together. "How much money are we talking about?" I asked. "Preliminary estimate? Close to $200,000 from Emma's company alone. But Jake had access to other client accounts too. The FBI is already involved." Rachel paused. "Sarah, there's something else. Jake's previous affair victims, the harassment escalated each time he got exposed. The last woman ended up in witness protection after he threatened her family. The hospital waiting room suddenly felt suffocating. You think he'll come after me? I think you forced a desperate man with nothing to lose to abandon his cover and run. Men like Jake don't just disappear quietly, they burn everything down on their way out." Derek grabbed my arm. "We need to call Mark, warn him. If Jake's running scared, he might try to pin everything on Mark somehow." But before I could dial Mark's number, the hospital's PA system crackled to life. "Code Silver, Emergency Department. Code Silver, Emergency Department." A nurse rushed past us toward the main entrance, and through the glass doors, I could see police cars pulling up outside. My stomach dropped as I recognized one of the figures getting out of the lead car. Jake Morrison, in handcuffs, being escorted by federal agents. And he was staring directly at me through the hospital windows. "Rachel," I whispered into the phone, "Jake's here. At the hospital. In custody." "What? That's impossible." Last report had him fleeing toward the airport. Derek and I watched in horrified fascination as the agents marched Jake through the entrance. He looked nothing like the smooth businessman I'd photographed with Emma. His expensive suit was torn and dirty, his face cut and bruised. But his eyes burned with a fury that made my skin crawl. As they passed our seating area, Jake suddenly lunged against his restraints, trying to break free toward me. "This is your fault," he screamed, spittle flying. "You destroyed everything. Emma told me what you did, how you stalked us, how you set this whole thing up." The agents wrestled him back under control, but his voice carried across the waiting room. "You think this is over? You think catching me fixes anything? Emma's just getting started, and you have no idea what she's really capable of." The automatic doors closed behind them, but Jake's words echoed in the sudden silence. Other patients and families stared at us with a mixture of curiosity and fear. Derek's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Jake's right. You should have minded your own business. Now everyone pays." Emma had somehow gotten access to a phone, even in police custody. And if Jake was right about her just getting started, my revenge had unleashed something far worse than I'd ever imagined. The text from Emma sent Derek into a panic, but before either of us could process what everyone pays meant, my phone exploded with notifications. Instagram, Facebook, email, dozens of alerts flooding in simultaneously. "What the hell?" I muttered, opening Instagram first. My blood ran cold. Someone had created a fake account using my name and photo, posting a detailed confession about how I'd orchestrated an elaborate revenge scheme that drove innocent people to violence. The posts claimed I'd hired someone to assault Emma, manipulated evidence to frame her for embezzlement, and destroyed multiple lives because I couldn't accept the truth about my husband's infidelity. But it wasn't just one post, it was dozens, tagged with everyone I knew. My coworkers, college friends, Mark's family, our wedding guests who'd witnessed the original disaster. Each post was more damaging than the last, painting me as an unhinged stalker who'd crossed every line imaginable. "Derek, look at this," I showed him the screen with shaking hands. His face went pale as he scrolled through the fabricated evidence. "She's tagged my entire family, my boss, even my grandmother. Sarah, this is..." He stopped, his expression shifting from horror to realization. "Wait. Emma doesn't have access to a phone in custody. Someone else is doing this." My phone rang, Mom's number. I answered with dread. "Sarah Elizabeth, what in God's name is going on? I just got a call from your Aunt Linda saying you've been posting horrible things online about Emma and that poor boy Jake. She says you're confessing to some kind of criminal conspiracy? Mom, those aren't from me. Someone's impersonating me online. Don't lie to me. I can see your profile picture right there. Are you telling me you didn't post about hiring someone to hurt Emma? About framing her for stealing money?" The line went dead. Mom had hung up on me, something that had never happened in my 28 years of life. Derek was fielding his own crisis, speaking in hushed, urgent tones to someone who was clearly not buying his explanations. When he hung up, his face was grim. "My firm's HR department. They're placing me on administrative leave pending investigation into my association with criminal activities. Someone sent them screenshots of the posts claiming I helped you plan everything. This is insane. We need to report this to the police, to Rachel. Sarah." Derek's voice was strange, distant. He was staring at his phone screen with an expression I couldn't read. "You need to see this." He showed me a news article from the local paper's website, posted just minutes ago. The headline made my stomach drop. "Local woman's wedding revenge plot leads to assault, embezzlement charges." The article detailed everything, but from Emma's perspective. It painted her as a concerned stepsister who discovered my husband's inappropriate behavior and tried to protect me, only to become the target of my increasingly unstable revenge campaign. According to the article, I'd hired criminals to assault her, manipulated evidence to frame her for financial crimes, and driven her boyfriend Jake to violence against his own wife. "How is this possible?" I whispered. "Emma's in police custody. Jake's in federal custody. Who's orchestrating this?" Derek's phone buzzed again. This time, it was a call from a number we both recognized, Emma's office landline. "Hello?" Derek answered cautiously. The voice that came through the speaker wasn't Emma's. It was crisp, professional, unfamiliar. "Mr. Morrison? This is Patricia Walsh, Emma Chen's attorney. I need you to understand that your continued harassment of my client needs to stop immediately." "Harassment? What are you talking about?" "The social media campaign you and Sarah have launched against Ms. Chen is not only defamatory, it's interfering with an ongoing investigation. We have documentation showing that you've been creating false evidence and spreading lies to cover up your fiancé's criminal behavior." Derek looked at me in shock. "Ma'am, I think you're confused. Sarah and I are the victims here. Mr. Morrison, my client has provided extensive evidence of Ms. Sarah's systematic campaign to destroy her reputation, including recordings of conversations where you both discuss manufacturing evidence against Ms. Chen and Mr. Morrison." My mind raced. Recordings? The only conversations Derek and I had shared were here at the hospital and at the coffee shop earlier. "Unless..." "The coffee shop," I whispered to Derek. "What if Emma had someone recording us there?" The lawyer continued, "Furthermore, the assault charges against Ms. Chen have been dropped due to prosecutorial misconduct. It appears certain evidence was tampered with, and witness statements were coerced." Derek ended the call, his hands shaking. "Sarah, what if Emma planned this whole thing? What if she knew exactly how we'd react, and she set us up from the beginning?" Before I could answer, hospital security approached our seating area. 2 guards, looking official and uncomfortable. "Ma'am, we're going to need you both to leave the premises," the older guard said. "There's been a complaint filed about harassment and disturbing the peace." As we gathered our things, I caught sight of someone familiar walking through the hospital's main entrance. Emma's father, my stepfather, flanked by 2 people in expensive suits. He looked older than I'd ever seen him, his face etched with disappointment and something that looked like fear. He spotted me and walked over, his expression unreadable. "Sarah, we need to talk. All of us. Right now." The way he said it made me realize that Emma's revenge was just getting started. The conference room my stepfather led us to felt like a tribunal. Emma's expensive lawyers had somehow arranged this meeting in less than 2 hours, which told me everything I needed to know about how much money was behind Emma's defense. My stepfather sat across from Derek and me, looking like he'd aged a decade since Emma's arrest. The lawyers flanked him like sharks smelling blood in the water. Sarah, he began, his voice heavy with exhaustion, I've known you since you were 16. I've watched you grow up, celebrated your achievements, walked you down the aisle when your biological father couldn't be bothered to show up. The reminder stung. He'd been more of a father to me than my real dad ever was, which made this betrayal cut even deeper. That's why this is so hard for me to accept, he continued. But Emma's legal team has shown me evidence that, well, it's difficult to dispute. The lead attorney, a sharp-faced woman in her 50s, slid a tablet across the table. These are financial records showing payments from your joint account with Mark to a private investigation firm. The same firm that somehow obtained intimate photos of my client. My heart sank. Mark had hired a PI after the wedding to investigate Emma's claims about him. It was completely legitimate, but in this context, it looked like we'd been stalking her. There's more, the attorney continued. Bank records showing you withdrew $1,500 in cash the day before my client's alleged assault. Security footage of you meeting with an unidentified individual in a parking garage that same evening. I stared at the screen, watching grainy footage of myself handing cash to someone whose face was obscured by shadows. Except I'd never made that transaction, never met anyone in a parking garage. The timestamp showed I was supposedly there during my shift at work. That's impossible, I said. I was at the office all day. My boss can verify. We called your office, the second lawyer interrupted. According to your supervisor, you left early that day citing a family emergency. There's even a signed timesheet documenting your early departure. Derek leaned forward, studying the footage more carefully. The resolution is terrible. That could be anyone with similar height and build. Perhaps, the first attorney acknowledged. But combined with the social media harassment campaign, the witness intimidation, and the financial irregularities, it paints a concerning picture. My stepfather looked physically ill. Sarah, please. Just tell me the truth. Did you have someone hurt Emma? Dad, I swear on my mother's grave, I never paid anyone to hurt Emma. I never met anyone in a parking garage. Someone is manufacturing this evidence. But you did hire investigators to follow her? After she destroyed my wedding and filed false charges against Mark, yes. We needed to prove she was lying. The lawyers exchanged glances. So you admit to systematic surveillance of our client. Photographing her without consent, tracking her movements, documenting her private activities. I documented her affair, yes. Because she was lying about everything else. An affair you allegedly discovered by following her to private locations and photographing intimate moments. Miss Sarah, what you described is criminal stalking. Derek's phone buzzed urgently. He glanced at it and went pale. Sarah, we need to leave. Now. What is it? Rachel just texted. The FBI wants to question you about Jake's embezzlement scheme. Someone told them you were his inside contact at Emma's company. The room erupted in controlled chaos. The lawyers immediately huddled together, whispering urgently. My stepfather stared at me like I'd grown a second head. How is that even possible? I demanded. I don't work for Emma's company. I've never even been to their offices. Derek showed me Rachel's text, emergency. Someone provided FBI with evidence showing Sarah as Jake's co-conspirator. Fake employment records, forged contracts, fabricated email trails. They're preparing arrest warrant. Need to surrender voluntarily ASAP. As we rushed toward the exit, the lead attorney called after us. Miss Sarah, running won't help your case. My client is willing to discuss a plea arrangement if you're ready to confess to your role in this conspiracy. But I wasn't running from the FBI. I was running toward the only person who might be able to prove I was being framed, Emma herself. It was time for the final confrontation. The county jail's visiting area felt like stepping into a nightmare. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I sat across from Emma, separated by reinforced glass and connected only by a scratchy phone line. She looked smaller in the orange jumpsuit, but her eyes held the same calculating gleam I'd seen at the hospital. I was wondering when you'd show up, she said, settling into her chair with unsettling composure. Though I have to admit, I expected you sooner. The FBI warrant must have been quite a shock. My hands trembled as I gripped the phone. Emma, whatever game you're playing, it ends now. I know you're orchestrating this whole thing, but I can't figure out how. She laughed, the sound distorted through the cheap speakers. You still don't get it, do you? You think because I'm in here, I'm powerless. But Sarah, I've been planning for this conversation since the moment you followed me to that coffee shop. That's impossible. You didn't know I saw you with Jake. Didn't I? Emma leaned forward, her smile predatory. You're not as subtle as you think. I spotted you that first day, crouched behind the coffee display like some amateur detective. Did you really think I wouldn't notice the same person showing up everywhere Jake and I went? My stomach dropped. You knew the whole time? I knew, and I planned accordingly. Every photo you took, every recording you made, I let you gather it all because I needed you to believe you were in control. Emma's voice took on an almost admiring tone. You documented my affair beautifully, Sarah. Created a perfect trail of evidence that makes you look obsessed and unhinged. But the fake text messages about Mark, the wedding sabotage, was real, obviously. I did destroy your precious day because watching you pretend to be the perfect family princess made me sick. But when you started your little investigation, I realized I could turn your revenge into something much more useful. I stared at her through the glass, pieces clicking into place with horrible clarity. You wanted me to expose the affair. I needed someone else to pull the trigger. See, Jake was getting clingy, demanding I leave Derek and run away with him. The embezzlement was his idea, he thought we'd need money to start over somewhere new. But I never planned to leave Derek. I just needed Jake to disappear. So you used me to destroy him. And you played your part perfectly. Every photo you took, every bit of evidence you gathered against us, it all supports the story that you were stalking me because you couldn't accept your husband's infidelity. Jake was just collateral damage in your obsession. My mind raced through the implications. The fake employment records linking me to Jake's company, the fabricated emails. Jake's been quite cooperative since his arrest. Amazing what people will do when they're facing federal prison time. He's testified that you approached him months ago, claiming Emma was embezzling and offering to help him frame her in exchange for a cut of the money. That's insane. No one will believe that. Emma's smile widened. Won't they? You hired private investigators to stalk me. You created detailed files on my personal life. You had intimate knowledge of financial irregularities at a company you claim never to have contacted. And now Jake, facing life in prison, swears you were his partner all along. The visiting room felt like it was closing in around me. Why? Why destroy so many lives just to get back at me? Because you had everything I wanted, and you never even appreciated it. The perfect wedding, the devoted husband, the family that actually chose you over their biological daughter. Emma's mask finally slipped, revealing years of accumulated resentment. Even my own father loves you more than me. Emma, that's not true. Isn't it? When push came to shove, who did he believe first? Who got the benefit of the doubt? She stood up, preparing to end the call. Don't worry, Sarah. When this is over and you're facing federal charges, I'll make sure to comfort Derek through his difficult time. After all, we're both victims of your manipulation. The line went dead, leaving me staring at Emma's retreating form as guards escorted her away. I finally understood the scope of her revenge, and realized I might already be too late to stop it. The drive from the jail to Rachel's office felt like racing toward either salvation or complete ruin. My cousin was waiting with a war room set up, multiple laptops, printed documents scattered across every surface, and the grim expression of someone who'd been fighting an uphill battle. Please tell me you have something, I said, collapsing into the chair across from her desk. I have everything. Rachel's smile was sharp with vindication. Emma's good, but she made one crucial mistake. She underestimated how thoroughly the FBI investigates financial crimes. She turned one of the laptops toward me, showing a complex timeline of digital transactions. Remember how Emma claimed Jake was cooperating, providing testimony that you were his partner? Well, Jake's not as smart as he thinks. When federal investigators offered him a plea deal, he got greedy and tried to negotiate by providing evidence against you. The fake employment records? Exactly. But here's the thing, Jake created those documents using his work computer at Morrison & Associates. The FBI's forensic team found the original files, complete with timestamps showing when they were created. Rachel highlighted several entries on the screen. Jake fabricated evidence against you yesterday afternoon, hours after Emma's arrest. My heart started racing. So they know he's lying? They know, but there's more. Remember those bank records showing your suspicious cash withdrawal? I had our tech team analyze the security footage Emma's lawyers provided. Rachel pulled up a video file, zooming in on the grainy image. Look at this woman's left hand. I squinted at the screen. The figure was wearing a wedding ring on the wrong finger, a detail so subtle it was almost invisible in the poor quality footage. Emma wears her engagement ring on her right hand because of some childhood injury to her left ring finger. It's in every photo from her engagement party. Rachel switched to another screen showing clear photos of Emma's distinctive ring placement. But this woman in the footage has rings on her left hand only. Someone impersonating me. Emma's college roommate, Lisa Chen. No relation, despite the shared last name. The FBI found payment records showing Lisa received $5,000 from Emma's personal account 3 days before your supposed assault conspiracy. I stared at the evidence, pieces falling into place. Emma planned this entire frame job before she ever got arrested. Right down to coaching Jake on what to tell federal investigators. But Jake's not the sharpest tool in the shed. When he tried to embellish his testimony with additional evidence of your involvement, he created documents that contradicted Emma's timeline. Rachel pulled up the final screen, a recording interface with Emma's booking photo attached. And then there's this. Jail calls are recorded, Sarah. Including the one Emma made 20 minutes after you visited her today. She hit play. Emma's voice filled the room, cold and calculating as she spoke to someone on the outside. The idiot bought it completely. Keep pushing the FBI angle while I work on Derek from in here. Once Sarah's arrested, we can tie up all the loose ends. Who was she talking to? Her lawyer's paralegal. Who, it turns out, is also Lisa Chen working under a fake identity. Rachel's smile was triumphant. Emma's entire legal team is compromised. They've been manufacturing evidence and coordinating this frame job from the beginning. My phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. Rachel nodded, indicating I should answer on speaker. Sarah? The voice was Derek's, but he sounded different, lighter somehow. You need to come to the police station right now. They're dropping all charges against you and issuing new warrants. For who? Emma, Jake, Lisa Chen, and Emma's fake legal team. The FBI just arrested the paralegal trying to destroy evidence. Derek's voice cracked with relief. Sarah, it's over. Emma's web finally collapsed under its own weight. As we rushed toward the police station, I finally understood that Emma's greatest weakness had been her greatest strength. She was so consumed with revenge that she'd never considered the possibility of losing. But in the end, the truth won out, and Emma's perfect plan became her perfect downfall.